100 webinars. We just can't stop.
Works Love Made Visible. Organizations across 9 countries and 4 continents. The blended learning,
Team engagement, and
our podcast to be called Hello World. Talk about habits of excellence, hustling in this VUCA world, entrepreneurship, lessons in running and managing a business, leading people, creating that vision, communicating effectively, have that right attitude, right mindset, the right outlook, no matter what happens around us in life. Great work. Leading different generations in the workplace. Last week, I offered a free virtual class on presentation skills and public speaking pointers. So if you missed that and would be interested to attend that, please follow us in our Facebook page and in our LinkedIn page. So if we will have a rerun, you will make sure that you're part of that. And I also delivered leadership for new leaders last week, where we had about 270 people. Today, our topic is leading different generations in the workplace, a very relevant topic as well. Before I proceed, I just want to check for connection. An important thing that trainers need to do during this time, please chat with me. Type in yes if you can hear my broadcast, if I'm coming in loud and clear. Please type in yes if I'm coming in loud and clear. So looking at the names of the people in the room now, where are they coming from? Okay, we have folks from Quantrix, we have folks from Etica. So you work with Rico Bautista. I remember a friend from Ayala Systems Technology before. Jen is here, and cross-checking other names with my list of participants here. Yes, Infocom and Relaya and Inspiro folks are here as well. Okay? We're going to remove all other clutter on this slide and just focus on the 5 different generations that are living in our world today. 5 different generations. And you can all see them. The faces really reflect the generations. You can also see the inclusive years of birth, because that is what defines the different generations. The traditionalists, let's start with traditionalists or Generation T. And you know, each generation will also have different aliases or names. The traditionalists or the matures, or also called veterans, were those born before 1946. And if we have traditionalists in the room, kindly chat with me and type in me. Let's say we have traditionalists here. Please be proud. These are people who are 74 years old and up. Yes, our grandparents. And if you will ask me, you said, Louis, in the workplace, yes, there are still a few of them who are actively working. You see a lot of them in the academe. You see a lot of them in the boardroom as members of senior management or board of directors, or sometimes advisors to senior management. So nobody said me. Let's move on to the next generation. That's Generation B, or baby boomer. We just wanted to call the generations with single letters, so it's consistent, X, Y, and Z, and you're all familiar with that. But baby boomers, we're calling them Generation B. They were born, this is the generation born from 1946 after World War II to 1964. Okay? And acknowledging as well if there are members of the baby boomer or Generation B in the room. If I have Gen B, kindly type in me. Who's a baby boomer here? And this is important for me because I need to profile our small class today so I can focus on specific topics if we have a few of these represented. And if I have a big mix, a great mix, I can also give a wide variety of tips. So far, no baby boomers here. If you notice, their ages are 56 to 74 years old. And when I deliver programs for senior management or top management, vice presidents, and C-suite or C-level, most likely I will have all Generation Bs in the room. For those of you who work with, I'd say, more traditional industries like banking or financial services, or I would even mention insurance, your top management will most likely be Generation B. Yes? And now moving to the next generation where I'm part of, I'm Generation X, a proud Generation Xer who were born 1965 to 1979. And our inclusive years of birth, as mentioned, leads us to this age range. They're between 41 to 55 years old. Okay? And I'm not giving away my age, but my age is between 41 to 55. Generation Y now comes next, born between 1980 to 2000. So technically speaking, everybody who's 20 years old to 40 years old still belong to Generation Y. Gen Z. Eh? I stopped asking. Don't worry, I'll ask the audience again. Gen Z, or is that generation that's born after 2000? And I'm sure that for those of you with kids or kids who are studying, who are in college, some of them might even be part of Generation Z. Okay? And I'm sure that if you Google these different generations, there might be slight changes in the starting and ending years of birth. And I've seen a lot of those. But looking at the commonalities on most that are presented in the literature or in the internet, I would choose to use these reference points. So, can we have representation in the room? How many people do we now have? We have around 16 people. How many are members of Gen X? Please type in X. If you're a member of Gen X, please type in X. Type. Oh, we have one member of Gen X. And if you are a member, we have two members of Gen X. Okay, so come on, Gen X. Gen X power. Show your Gen X power. Make your presence felt if you are members of Generation Y. Please type in Y. Type in Y, and we have Generation Y. And they're now coming in. We're outnumbered. Gen X folks. My fellow Gen Xers, Jazz and Genesis, we are outnumbered by Generation Y. If you notice, of all the generations, Gen Y also has the biggest spread in terms of age range or birth range. Yes, 20 years. Okay? But it's okay. We're after being able to lead and influence all these generations in the workplace with the end goal of making them work together. In reality, currently in the workplace, there are lots of actual and possible conflicts that can involve generational differences. Okay? I'm expecting several people who are supposed to attend based on our list from other countries. Just checking if we have an all Filipino group here, so I can also make the discussion more relatable. In short, magtatagalog tayo. If we have folks who cannot understand Tagalog or Filipino, please type in me. If you cannot understand Tagalog or Filipino, please type in me. So it will be a full English only session. Waiting for these people, waiting for these people who will say, I cannot understand Filipino or Tagalog. I'm not getting any. So assuming everybody can understand Tagalog or Filipino. Say 80 to 90% English, there are expressions that are really based or best mentioned, best delivered in Tagalog. This topic should be very close to our hearts, my dear friends. Yes, because once more, you are part of one of these generations. Traditionalists, very few of them that we interact with, but I'm sure you had interacted with them in the course of your career. Gen Zs, not so much. only if you work with BPOs or with global companies who hire high school level or high school graduates. Some of these global organizations have relaxed the recruitment standards in terms of education, but majority of those active in the workplace are Gen Bs who are more in senior management roles, Gen Xers who are more in middle management to senior management roles, and Gen Ys who are the bulk of our workforce. More than 55% of the Filipino labor force is Gen Y. And given the spread, 1980 to 2000, you can see that a lot of our frontline leaders and middle managers as well, and a few top senior management would also come from Generation Y. And of course, it depends on the industry. Checking if you're still with me. If you're still with me, please type in me. Type in me if you are still with me. My way of making sure that I haven't lost you yet and you haven't lost me as well. Okay? Ollie, do we have a survey question for them? Total, all Filipino naman tayo, di ba? Okay, do you have that? Pakita mo na nga. Let's show that. Do you have it? Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Sige. It's okay. Let's just go to generation gap. Let me explain the generation gap slide there. Okay? Ayan, 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 ayan. Sige. Okay? This photo is very powerful. You can see somebody who lived in the Renaissance times, and you see somebody who lived in the punk ages of late 70s to 1980s, the time when I enjoyed the British music. There is no better time to talk about generation gap than our time today, when all of those three generations are present in the workplace. Let's just go through very quick definitions of generation. There is a father of generational research, Karl Mannheim, would define generation as, and I will not read the text that we can see here, we'll just focus on keywords or key phrases. Okay? They're a group of individuals similar in age that have experienced noteworthy events. And those noteworthy events have bound them and gave them a shared sense of meaning. So they have the same interpretation, they speak and think alike, and they also move alike. Now, paying attention to generations in the next slide is important because we may not be able to relate to some values and some behaviors of different generations because they, again, experienced significant events that may be different from what we have experienced. I will take out Gen Z for the meantime. There's a lot of literature on Gen Z. I really believe, looking at their characteristics, they're very similar to Generation Y. Of course, there are some uniqueness. And because of the percentage of these generations in the workplace, I will just focus on 4 generations. Let's show the table of these 4 generations. If I'm conducting an in-person workshop and we are all in the same room, there's an activity that I do here. You can imagine that all of these words are scattered on the wall in posters, and then you're assigned to a specific group. You're either T, B, X, and Y. T is traditionalist, by the way, and then you know what the others are. And then you will get that description if it belongs to your chosen generation. Okay? So let's start with T's, and then I will go moving to Generation Y. It's important that in leading people who come from different generations, we don't only know the differences. These differences, these phrases and keywords, you can Google, you can look at the internet, but it's important to explain why each generation behaves this way. So alam natin, Ys are also called entitled generation. And we don't know why. There's actually a relationship across all 4 of these. And I'd like to tell that story in the next 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then give you implications on how this will affect your leadership style. Let's start with traditionalists. As the name implies, traditionalists, veterans, matures. If there are words to describe the traditionalist, of course you can see it all here. I will not go through this line by line. Pero obviously, patriotic sila, makabayan sila. Right? And why do I have to emphasize that? Sadly, we look at our kids, we look at the younger generation who can no longer relate that when you play the national anthem, you have to stand still, you will not move, you put your hand on your chest, and then you sing the national anthem. Right? Is it something that you can relate to? Agree ba kayo? Eh, sa younger generation natin, wala na yan. But traditionalists, because they lived at the time when there are not too many distractions or attention getters, just like what we have now, the only source of authority back then was church and government. Yes, the school system is not so organized during that time, and you can imagine during their time, yung mga traditionalists na yan, yung born before 90, your World War II, education is not a right, it is a privilege, so not too many, okay, will really go through school. They're taught by the church and government. And that's why they're also respectful of authority figures. Okay? Itong mga patriotic na to, kaya din sila ganyan, because they also witnessed 2 world wars. Most likely, they have witnessed 2 world wars. Maybe one, if you were born 1930s, no, 1940s, inabutan nila nung sila'y bata ang World War II. But for example, my grandparent was able to catch World War I, and World War I and World War II is just a decade apart. So really explains why they are self-sacrificing, they defer gratification. Sa madaling salita, ang traditionalist ay hirap sa buhay at sanay sa hirap ng buhay. Because when you grow up at a time when there are wars, 2 world wars, you are used to seeing suffering around you, and you are used to finding ways so that you can deal and survive with all of those. Madiskarte, lumaking self-sacrificing, nagpaparaya para sa mga kapatid or mga kasama sa bahay. The first gratification is important. They know the value of waiting. And during that time, no technology. Everything that people does or do involves waiting. You plant so that you can eat. You wait for 6 months and then you reap what you sow. Everything requires time. And I'm establishing this, my dear friends, because when we go to the younger generation, it seems that the instant generation of Gen Ys really expect that things will be given now, right? Everything expects things to be fast. And it seems that we cannot wait for things to take time to go through the process. So that's my touch on traditionalists. Kasi sa kanila, lahat nagsimula. Makabayan, ano pa? Masipag, as mentioned there, hardworking. They're very respectful of authority. And at the same time, sanay sa hirap. And I'd like to use that as context as we go now to baby boomers. Before I proceed, just checking with you, are you still with me? Are you making sense here? If I'm still making sense to you, please type in sense. Type in sense if I am making sense to you. Perfect. This will make greater sense. Ito mga traditionalists. Yes? And if anybody just joined who does not understand Filipino or Tagalog, just please interrupt me. Please type in the chat room so I can shift to pure English. Ito mga traditionalist na to, yung mga lola at lola natin. Nagkaanak. Tama? And ang mga anak nila, baby boomers. Yes? Why again are they called baby boomers? Because they were born after World War II. And as you all know, when you're in a war, population goes down. War as a natural cleanser of the human race. After World War II, increase na naman ng population. Peacetime eh. Tama? So peacetime, anong gagawin? Correct? Population boom. Now, the baby boomers received a lot of advice from their traditionalist parents. And their traditionalist parents would pass on lessons to baby boomers. Anong sabi ng mga traditionalist? So if you have a lola, if you grew up with a lola or a lolo, ano ang mga pangaral nila sa atin? Sige nga, involving our audience. I'd like this to be interactive and participative. Please type in the chat room, ano ang mga pangaral nila lola at lolo that you still remember until now? Let's do it. Come on. Type in, type in, type in. What are those words of advice that you remember? And they would repeat it. Sobrang makulit. Tama? Sunod sa magulang. Study well. Eh? Mag-aral ng mabuti. Let me cue you. Anong sinasabi nila sa pagkain? Anong sinasabi sa pagkain? Ano ang sinasabi sa butil ng bigas or kanin? Ano ang sinasabi sa tubig? Tama? They would say, ubusin ang pagkain, huwag magtira, tama? Huwag magsayang, maging masinop. And they will always refer to their experiences during the war. At least my grandparents would always say that, nung panahon ng gera, ganyan. Yung lola ko, nung panahon ng gera, we would get water from the canals and boil them to be able to drink. And of course, nung panahon na yun, malinis pa ang mga kanal, tama? And you know, that could be possible at that time. So they will always compare. Eh? That's why I grew up with the lola who was responsible for who I am today. I imbibe all of that. Hanggang ngayon, clean plate ako eh. No? Clean plate, no? So further yung sa'yo naman, matulog ng hapon para lumaki agad. Actually, meron ding implication yan pag kinumpare natin sa Gen Y. So the baby boomers got all of those advice from their traditionalist parents. And because the baby boomers have seen the traditionalist respect for authority, yung mga baby boomers natin naniwala sa kanilang mga magulang. Okay? And of course, no? Ang disiplina nun, traditional. Tama? Ang disiplina nun ay physical discipline. And I'd like to refer that physical discipline, that form of physical punishment, was already disappearing among Gen Ys and even absent during Generation Z. Kaya naman, nung itong mga workaholic natin baby boomers, nung sila ay mag-graduate, or not all of them had the chance to go through school, right? They would seek work and they would become very, very loyal to the companies that they work with. Kasi sabi nga ng kanilang mga magulang, mahirap ang buhay. Mag-aral kayong mabuti. Para pag nakapag-aral kayo, you will get a job. They took that to heart. Kaya, nung magkaroon sila ng unang trabaho, they promised themselves one thing. I will be loyal to this company. Because my parents were saying, mahirap ang walang trabaho. Paano pag magkaroon ng gera? That explains why you can see here that the description of B is loyal to companies. They stayed longer. And I have to emphasize that because before, baby boomers would pick a company, and that company that they start with, fresh grad sila, pumasok sila doon, or that's their first job, they will end with that company as their retirement company. I would encounter people in my workshops, yung mga nasa mga traditional organizations, and I would ask, no, how long have you been here? 37 years, 39 years, 41 years. The longest is 45 years, as in 20 anyos siya noon. Tapos 45 years. Could you imagine that? I've been through 7 companies in my career. Sabi ko, hindi ko yata na-imagine. Pero, iba nga ang generation natin eh. Yung generation nila, talagang
nag-instill yung advice ng parents. That's why it affected their loyalty to their companies. And if traditionalists are patriotic, the baby boomers ended up as the hardworking. Nakikita niyo sa traditionalists, di ba? Ang baby boomers natin, they became even more hardworking. And if there's an adjective that describes baby boomers, it's the word workaholic. Alam niyo kung bakit? Di ba loyal sila? Everybody's loyal. And not too many companies offer fast growth and promotion before. Because not all companies are ramping up. Walang word na ramp up nun. Walang word na attrition nun nung panahon ng baby boomers, no? Walang mga hindi kailangan ng mga engagement program, hindi kailangan ng mga walang human resources or personnel nung panahon na yon, no? So, if I'm loyal to this company and everybody else is loyal, how do I move up quickly? Because that's the only way to really gain career advancement and of course, and to improve the quality of my life. Yes, the only way is to be workaholic, to really work hard. And you know what is the KPI before when you say work hard? Wala pa tayong productivity metrics dati. Wala pang scorecard or dashboard dati. The basis, my dear friends, is the time that people spend at work. Kaya patagalan ang pasok. Patagalan ang pasok sa trabaho. Okay? Overtime. Okay? Of course, not all the time. But pagtatanong ngayon ng mga baby boomers, hindi makaalis ng opisina kasi nandun pa ang boss. What I'm sharing with you now is not my opinion. What I'm sharing with you now is not something that I heard. What I'm sharing with you now is based on three things. What I researched and what actual representatives of this generation have told me in my personal research and also from my personal experience, not just in the Philippines, having respondents and testimonials from all over the world. Kaya totoo tong generational differences na to eh. Of course, there are differences across cultures or across different countries, pero overall, globally, meron talagang way mag-isip ang baby boomers, X's, at saka Y's. Before I proceed, are you still with me? Are you still with me? Please check in with me. I'm checking in with you. Are you still with me? Please type in yes. Please type in yes if you are still with me and I'm getting a lot here. Holly, dito na lang tayo sa slide na to. Kaya kwento ko na lang to. So, workaholic, time. Kaya dati, mahirap makaalis hanggat nandyan ang boss. Yes? Kasi nga, yung respective authority ng traditionalist, pinasa din nila doon sa kanilang mga baby boomer parents. So, tingnan nyo sa description, competitive, ambitious. Yan ang baby boomer because he wants to get ahead. And the only way to really get ahead is time spent at work. Kaya pag sinabing masipag ka nun, ibig sabihin, hindi ka nagre-reklamo, you stay at work, you give your extra mile. Okay? Kaya, totoo yun, dati. Aalis ka na lang, makita mo yung boss nandyan pa, mapapaupo ka. Hindi katulad ngayon. Sometimes, mas nauuna pang umalis yung mga teammates natin than supervisory and manager roles who could have to do some admin work. Let me also point out that, yes, they're not confident in leaving a secure position now. Okay? Because at their age, baby boomers, we said, are 55 years old and above, not unless they're in senior management roles and they're being pirated, not very confident in leaving a secure position. The tension inside the baby boomers nowadays is striving for more versus wanting to slow down. So if you manage a baby boomer, it's possible that you manage somebody who's older than you, baby boomer, at their age na 55 plus. Ang dilemma niya, yun nakalagay doon, no? Ang dilemma niya, I know I'm still good. I know I still have something to show that I'm good at what I do. I can still shine. Pero ang tanong doon, pero mahina na rin ang katawan ko. I've been through a lot already. I want to slow down already. So in managing a baby boomer, you would really need to use motivational tactics, relationship building, right? para ma-influence nyo yung baby boomer. Kasi kahit gusto ng puso, even if the spirit is willing, you know, the body, the mental capacities of baby boomers may already be signaling that they need to slow down. Okay? Because at this point, they're already enjoying the benefits of their hard work. Pick up natin, baby boomers, loyal to companies. They don't plan to leave, not unless a major org change happens. They see the company that they joined as their retirement company. And for them to move up, the key is being workaholic, being there when the boss needs them, being there when the boss is still at work. Time is the major KPI. Remember, walang dashboard, scorecard, KPIs nung panahon ng mga baby boomers na to. Kaya yung performance tools before, assessment tools before, ano ang laman? Hardworking, attendance, initiative, very subjective, no? Difficult to measure components. Are you able to relate as I say this? Relate ba kayo? Relate ba? Or if you, of course, you did not live during that time, I'm telling you what they experienced and what they went through. That now had an impact on the next generation, my dear friends. The baby boomers who spent more time at work for them to get ahead. Usually, mga parents natin to, yung mga baby boomers na yan. Kasi may pangarap, magpundar ng bahay, ano pa, sasakyan, and provide the best education for their children. They really have to be hardworking. Now, the baby boomers had children, and their first children were Generation Xers. I'm a proud member of Gen X. Ganito na lang. Kung ang magulang mo ay busy sa trabaho, kasi nga, they're trying to build their careers, and they're loyal to their companies, and they're loyal to their bosses, and they're competitive and ambitious, and they want to get ahead. Kung ako'y Gen X and my parents are baby boomers, who's left to tend for me? That's how Gen Xers grew up. And the Gen Xers, the two Gen Xers in this class will agree with me that if there is one description that best describes Gen X, ang traditionalist, patriotic, ang baby boomer, hardworking, ang Gen Xer, independent. Agree ka ba? Agree ka ba, Jen? Genesis, agree ka ba? And who's the other? Yas, agree ka ba? We are the most independent of all the generations. Why? Kasi busy mag-put up ng career ang mga magulang. Kaya I will only focus on one key phrase there on that slide on Gen X. Latch key. What is a latch key? Latch, sabit, key, susi. Kaming mga Gen X, kami yung pag-uwi namin sa eskwela dati, ang parents wala sa bahay, no yayas, no kasambahay, they only came around recently. We were taught, alam natin yan, na ang susi ng bahay, Jen and Yas, please confirm with me, na ang susi ng bahay ay nasa ilalim ng pasok. Okay? Na ang susi ng bahay ay nasa ledge dyan. No? So when you go home, you know you'll open the door, you will lock it, maglalaba ka ng uniform mo because you don't have everyday uniforms. You have food there, bahala ka, may peanut butter dyan, may pandesal dyan. Yes, gagawa ka na ng assignment mo. No help from anyone. Gen X grew up as independent. So if you have independent teammates, sabi ko kay baby boomer, take it easy. Because at this point, at this age, they may still feel that they have something to give, but you know, they don't want to give it because they want to slow down. Kay Gen X naman, ang description ni Gen X is independent. Kaya pag may Gen Xer ka na teammate, wag kang makulit. Wag mong i-micromanage because we're used to being independent. Correct? Di ba? Ayaw ng Gen Xer yung diskarte ako eh. Di ba? Wag mo kaya ko to. Because from school, I was independent and so are people of my age. Dala-dala mo yung bag mo, wala kang kasama. Ngayon may mga ate, kuya, may taga-bitbit ng bag ang mga bata. Tama? I would do everything. Go to the library, look for books, research books that I cannot find. Ngayon, computer, may Google. So, it's not anybody's fault, but it's just that we lived during that time. Pati sa career. O ito ha, niniwala kayo. Sinong boss ng ex? Baby boomer. Sabi nung ex sa boss, boss, turuan mo naman ako. Boss, coach me. Kaya walang coaching training nung unang panahon. Boss, coach mo ako. Ano sasabihin ng baby boomer? Di ba? Konti lang ang opportunities. Di ba? Competitive saka ambitious yung Gen B. So sasabihin ng Gen B, pag tinuruan ko tong Gen X, maunahan pa ako nito. So sasabihin ng Gen B, baby boomer na boss before, no, read the manual. Sasabihin ng baby boomer boss, in my time, nag-self-study ako, mag-self-study ka. Yes! Kaya kami mga Gen X, self-study kami. Sanay kami trying to figure out answers to our questions. Tumpak ba, Veronica? Swak na swak ba? So, nagbibigay na ako ng tips on leadership, right? Okay. Now, the Gen Xers are the middle generation because the changes happened during Gen X. The baby boomers were loyal to a company. Si Gen X, dyan na nagkaroon ng IT, dyan na nagkaroon ng globalization, dyan na nagkaroon ng mga multinational corporations, dyan na nagkaroon ng mga HR and other fields, quality that are not present before. And therefore, there are now more career options. And therefore, they said, I don't necessarily have to stay with one company, but I can be, for example, I can be a trainer wherever I go. So I am loyal to my profession, not necessarily loyal to a company. Correct? Kaya dito nagsimula yung job hopping sa X. Kaya sa X bumaba yung tenure, average tenure ng mga empleyado. So, you want to motivate or lead the Gen X? Huwag kang makulit. Huwag kang micromanager. Give them some elbow room. Tell them the direction. But of course, you need to monitor performance. Right? Ngayon, ito na exciting with 12 minutes to go. Mas exciting ngayon to. Sabi ko, sa X nagsimula yung mga pagbabago. And sinasabi ko, exciting. Excited pa ba kayo? Are you still excited? Please type in excited. If you are still excited, tignan nga natin. Excited pa ba? Okay? Ngayon, ito na. Sorry for the Gen Ys, ha? So, Gen Ys, please understand that this is based on research. Guys, be with me. Yung Gen X na lumaking walang parental figure kasi busy mga magulang. Yung hindi kinoach ng mga boss, yung Gen X, no? Nung may anak na si Gen X, they promised one thing to themselves. I'm moving closer to the camera for better emphasis. When they had kids, especially during the period of 1980s onwards, they promised themselves one thing. They said, hindi ko hahayaan. Tuloy nyo. Tuloy nyo sa chat room. Paki-chat. Ano sabi nito mga Gen Xers sa sarili nila nung magkaanak sila? Hindi ko hahayaan na ang mga anak ko, tuloy nyo. Please type in. Hindi ko hahayaan maranasan ng anak ko ang naranasan ko. Hindi ko hahayaang maghirap ang anak ko. Hindi ko hahayaan na ang boss, tama, hindi i-coach ang tao. And therefore, what essentially happened, my dear friends, is the parenting style changed from one end to another. Na yung mga traditionalist at baby boomer na namamalo, tama, namamalo. Napalo ba kayo? At kung napalo kayo, please type in kung anong pinampalo sa inyo. Sige nga, pahabaan ng list tayo. Please type in kung ano ang mga naga. Sinturon, perfect. Slippers, perfect. Hanger, tama? Hanger, magazine, walis tambo, walis kawayan. Grabe, ang sakit naman ng kawayan, no? Wire ng rice cooker. Tingnan mo. To our Gen Y in the room and to Gen Z, I will bet that the Gen Zs or some of our Gen Ys never even tasted this. I am not a fan. I am not promoting punishment as parental discipline. But what I'm saying is, nagbago ang parenting style. Yung ex, sabi ng ex, no, I will be kind to my kids. I will support them. I will shelter them. I will put off lotion so that hindi sila kagatin ng lamok. Tama? I will give them all my support, all my time, coaching, tama? Guidance. Ayaw madapa. Nung panahon ko, umuwi ako, kumampas o sumemplang ako sa bike, kasalanan ko pa. Pag uwi ko na, umiiyak ako. Ano sabi, bakit? Sumemplang ako sa bike. Oh, kasalanan mo yan. Ngayon, when these kids were growing up in the 80s, tama? Nadapa, umiyak, tama? Anong ginawa ng magulang? Pinalo yung floor. Pinalo. O, kasalanan ng floor. Bad ka, floor. Pinalo yung floor. See? So, no offense meant. I'm just stating facts. The Gen Ys grew up with lots of support provided to them. It's not your fault. It has been given to you. Kasambahay phenomenon na uso. Yaya phenomenon na uso. Service, wala namang service dati. Okay? And yes, based on research, sheltered because the parents did it. Ang tawag nga sa mga parents ng Gen Y ay helicopter parents at saka lawnmower parents who provided greater assistance and greater help, okay, to their kids. Tama? Sino gumawa ng assignment? Magulang. Tama? Pag may issue, punta ka agad sa school. And again, it's not the fault of this generation. It's the fault of Gen X or the older generation. Okay? Ngayon, when these kids got to the workforce, they were sheltered. They were given a lot of guidance or help. They were also given lots of praise. Let me stay on this point, lots of praise. Okay? When these kids were growing up, di ba? Ang daming awards. O, di ba yung Gen X? Wala kasing baby boomer dito eh. Nung Gen X, di ba? Nung Gen X, pakita ko sa magulang ko yung high grades ko. Anong sabi ng daddy ko? Bakit may 88? Ang nakita yung 88. Yung mga 92, 95, hindi pinansin. Tama? Ngayon, when the younger generation is growing up, when we look at the report cards, anong sabi ng mga magulang? Oh, anak, at least tatlo lang ang 70 mo. And, di ba, nagkaroon ng phenomenon ngayon sa social media, sa Facebook, pinopost ng parents lahat ng mga achievements, ng mga trophies, lahat ng mga kung saan magaling. Ang Gen Y din ang binigyan ng lahat ng support. Karate lessons, swimming lessons, summer classes, violin lessons, lahat ng mga lessons. Nung panahon ko, wala kaming ganyan. Sabi ko sa inyo eh, they got a lot of support. They got a lot of praise. Kahit yung mga magulang, tama? They praise their kids so much. At sa mga parents dito sa kwartong to, you are pumping up the self-esteem and the ego of your kids. What does that mean, my dear friends? Gen Y also require that their leaders in the workplace become their second parents. They expect guidance from you. Kaya usong-uso ang coaching training sa panahon ngayon. Tama? Ano pa? They expect us to really be very generous with praise and recognition. Okay? Nung unang panahon, you don't expect praise. Sabi ng mga older managers dati, bakit kita ipe-praise kasama sa trabaho yan? Di ba? Ngayon, no. They expect that they will be affirmed. They'll be given feedback. They'll be given feedback if they're doing the right thing or they need to change. Yes? Nag-iba po talaga ang panahon. Kaya lang magkakasama sa workforce si B, si X, at saka si Y. One last thing about Generation X. They were also allowed. Yes? Nawala ang physical punishment. They were allowed to answer back at parents. They were allowed to reason out. Nung unang panahon, you cannot reason out to traditionalists or baby boomer managers. You cannot reason out. No amount of information. Pag sinabi nilang, sino ba boss dito? Pag sinabi bang, ano ba rank mo? Matuto kang lumugar. But now, it's a meritocracy. It's no longer seniority, it's meritocracy. And this fits very well the younger generation who they will challenge you. You're older, so what? You have position title, so what? They will challenge you if they do not believe in what you're saying. Kahit sa bahay, di ba? Mga parents dito, ina-allow natin yung mga anak natin to answer back or to reason out. In fact, we like it when our kids reason out or somehow answer back. Pero pag ikaw, sinagot ka ng tao mo, millennial or Gen Y, pag ikaw nag-reason out sa'yo ang tao mo, sipin mo itong sinasabi ko. They have been allowed to push back. They have been allowed to answer back and reason out. And when they do that, they're not rude. Yes, they are just doing what they have been accustomed at home. So listen to their inputs. And there should be a way by which you need to answer them. Kaya, during this time, when we are leading majority of Gen Ys, leaders like us, we need to be very good in communicating. Nung unang panahon, hindi kailangan ng communication skills. Sasabihin lang na, boss, gusto mo bang matanggal o gagawin mo? Ngayon, organizational change, because this is the situation and we need your help, we need your contribution. Leaders would really need to lead and communicate. And let me end with this one. Gen Y is also best called Gen Y because leaders of Gen Ys need to be very good at explaining why. Why? Kasi yan ang tanong nila. Why? Why is that the policy? Why do we need to change it? Why are you allowing that other team and not me? They will always ask why. Nung unang panahon, sasabihin ng baby boomer at saka ng ex, sumunod na lang tayo. Huwag tayo magtanong ng why. But you have a generation in front of you now who's challenging. And the leaders who will fit Gen Y are the leaders who are good in explaining and at the same time, marelasyon. Remember, ang Gen Y ang pinaka-close sa kanilang parents. So we need to serve as second parents to our Gen Y employees.
Hi, this is Louis Banta, CEO and Chief Consultant of LJMB or Learning Just Made Better. Thanks for watching my video. To get more videos like this, click subscribe and hit the bell icon below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, comment down below, and share this to others.